Hey there everybody, I'm Dr. Orro the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now today's episode is going to be dedicated to a very special person in my family, and it's someone you may or may not have seen before on my show. That person is my sister, Sabrina Orro, who has just turned 20 today. So, what films should I blog to celebrate her second decade as my sister? Well, why don't we take a look back at our dear old friend Hans Christian Andersen. For those who don't know, Andersen's stories have become culturally embedded in the West's collective consciousness, readily accessible to children, but presenting lessons on virtue and resilience in the face of adversity for mature readers as well. Some of his most famous stories include The Emperor's New Clothes, The Little Mermaid, Thumbelina, The Wild Swans, The Nightingale, The Snow Queen, The Ugly Duckling, and many more. But out of all these stories, there was one story that was pretty interesting to me. That story was The Princess and the Pea. It's a story about a young woman whose royal identity is established by a test of physical sensitivity. The tale was first published with three others by Andersen in an inexpensive booklet on May 8, 1835 in Copenhagen. In 1959, The Princess and the Pea was adapted to a musical stage show called Once Upon a Mattress starring Carol Burnett. In fact, 5 years ago, Sabrina got to perform in Once Upon a Mattress at my old high school as the lead character Winifred.
Actually, I swam the moat.
Anyway, for this episode, I've chosen an animated musical version of The Princess and the Pea that many of you out there may never have heard of before. And I hope, if Sabrina is watching, it's something I think she'll like. Released on August 16th, 2002, the movie is The Princess and the Pea. So, let's get started, shall we? After King Heat's daughter is born, his evil brother Laird switches her with his own newborn daughter and sends her away to live with pig farmers as vengeance for not inheriting the crown. The princess grows up to be a peasant girl named Daria, and after a chance encounter with Prince Rollo, they fall in love. Rollo quickly sets aside his own feelings in favor of marrying a princess for the good of his kingdom, but trouble is stirring when Laird schemes to get his daughter, the wrongful Princess Hildegard, to marry Rollo, and to get Daria out of the picture for good. There's also the matter of an impending prophecy that the kingdom will fall to ruin after the rule of the 18th king, and the only way to find the rightful princess to rule it is to have her sleep atop 20 mattresses with a single pea at the bottom, and see whether she can detect it without knowing it's there. So, what do I think of this movie? Well, I actually thought, even if some parts were a tad cliched, it was pretty good. But sadly, I didn't see this film when it was released in 2002. You see, I didn't even know about it until spring 2009 when I randomly found it on YouTube, the same place where I came across the two Unico films that I blogged last year. And I also think the reason why I never heard of it years ago is probably because the movie did get a limited release in theaters before going to home media. But in order to explain more information, let's move on to Mustang Notes. The film was directed by Mark Swan and was released as an American-Hungarian production of feature films for families and Swan Productions. The scriptwriters were Forrest S. Baker and Ken Cromwer. The film won 2 accolade Competition Awards of Excellence in 2003 and 2004, both for the musical score by composer Alan Williams. The film was also nominated for a Young Artist Award in 2003 in the category of Best Family Feature Film Animation. Speaking of animation, this style of animation does look pretty good. While there is a little bit of CGI in a lot of the scenes, but still it's not up to snuff with Disney. Oh, speaking of which, this film does seem to feel like a Disney knockoff. Pretty, well, kind of like what the Swan Princess and Don Bluth's Thumbelina was. But unfortunately, during that year, Disney's animated films were not exactly fairy tale related, but more sci-fi. But still, that doesn't make this movie bad. It's just not very well known to many people. Plus, its story is pretty good too. Now let's move on to the songs. First, the opening song, Karazian, is your typical crowd song, but it does remind me of Hail to the Princess Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. However, in this song, the people are celebrating the upcoming coronation awaiting the new king. After that is the villain song, That's What It Takes to Rule. In that, Laird sings about how he doesn't care if his subjects are starving or overtaxed, so long as he gets to be king. And during that, a young Prince Rollo protests about the idea and believes that Laird's brother Heath should be king. Next is Wide Open World, sung by Daria, as she does chores around the farm. And it's more of a wanderlust song, similar to Aurora's song, I Wonder, from Sleeping Beauty. Next is Secret of the Pea, sung by Sebastian, while he's trying to figure out the mystery of the pea in his laboratory. The next song after that is My Kingdom of the Heart, which is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful love songs outside of a Disney film, next to Far Longer Than Forever from the Swan Princess. It's sung by Daria while she shows Prince Rollo her favorite part of her secret place, which is in reality Castle Ruins dating back to the time the Princess of Legend ruled. There is one part of the song that's kind of familiar to me, and that's when the people from the stained glass windows jump off and join in a dance. It's almost like the ghosts that appear in Once Upon a December from Anastasia. And the song does get a nice reprise, and it's also sung during the end credits by Crystal Harris. And the last song I need to mention is The Perfect Princess, which is sung by Rollo while he's searching for a wife with Sebastian's help. However, that song, in my opinion, is just okay. I mean, not great, just okay. I mean, there are times when the royal families go into a fast pace, but when Rollo sings it, it goes soft and slow. But the princesses, however, go all silly, picky, and obnoxious, which makes me feel how Rollo feels during this. Well, now that we're done with Mustang notes and songs, let's move on to the cast and their characters. Our main character, Princess Daria, is voiced by Amanda Waring. Now, I love this character. I mean, she's mostly like Aurora, and a bit like Cinderella, because she remains cheerful in spite of doing all the chores on the farm, as well as taking care of her lazy, verbally abusive step-parents. What's interesting about her is that she has a heart-shaped royal birthmark on her left foot. Daria also has 3 piglet friends who are with her throughout the whole movie. Their names are Princess, who's a cute female pig, Hungry, who's a fat pig who loves to eat, and Fearless, who's a lovable coward, but Daria just named him that so that he could one day live up to being brave. Daria has other animal friends who live in the secret place. For example, Balthazar, who claims to be the only bear in her life. Next we have Prince Rollo, voiced by Jonathan Firth. Rollo is one of my favorite characters due to his idealistic personality. When he was a boy, he attended the Corazon coronation and helped put Heath on the throne many years later, when he's a young man, he sets out with his dog Winthrop, more on him later, to find a wife. He initially wanted to marry a princess to strengthen his own kingdom, but after being dissatisfied by how shallow all the princesses he meets are, he decides to marry Daria. Also, Rollo's dog Winthrop is pretty similar to Max from The Little Mermaid. I mean, he's a smart dog, and he never leaves Rollo's side. Next up is my absolute favorite character, Sebastian the Raven, voiced by Nigel Lambert. Best known for his role as the narrator of the first series of the BBC comedy series, Look Around You. The reason why I like this bird is not only because he's a scholar and has been trying to solve the mystery of the pea for years, but it's because he's kind, caring, and of course, funny. He even helps Rollo put Heath on the throne, and years later tries to help Rollo find a wife. There are also times when he gets abused, or even gets into a squabble with Laird's falcon, who chased him around a few times. Next is Daria's father, King Heath, voiced by Lincoln Hope. Heath is the youngest and nicest between him and Laird. He assigns Laird to rule over the Pig Kingdom, and after losing his beloved wife, Mariana, when his daughter was born, he wishes for her to be as kind and loving as she was. But as the years go by, Heath mostly is in a sorrow mood, having to deal with his switched daughter being a brat. But on the other hand, he's on good terms with Prince Rollo. Next is the villain, Lord Laird, voiced by Ronan Vibert. Best known for his appearances on British television. Laird is pretty similar to Scar from The Lion King because he seeks revenge on Heath after he became king. Laird is the oldest son and was supposed to inherit the throne, but because of the rule that the first son who enters the throne room during the coronation day becomes king, he lost his birthright since Heath walked in with some help from Rollo and Sebastian while Laird was busy looking for his shoes. Speaking of which, what kind of villain would wear golden shoes shaped like the kind that jesters would wear? I mean, that kind of idea is pretty much a joke. But aside from that, Laird is still an underrated villain. Not only does he switch Daria with his daughter Hildegard so that he can torment his brother, knowing that she would grow up to be a royal brat, but he also has his wife Helsa stay at the castle as her nurse and tutor her. He even manipulates a mob to kill Daria and convinced everyone that Rollo wants to marry Hildegard. He even amuses himself by building booby traps around the dungeons. And now for my final words. Overall, The Princess and the Pea shouldn't just be known as a Disney knockoff, but it's one of the most underrated animated fairy tales ever to come from the 2000s. It's a great film with a good story, while a bit cliched, memorable characters, decent songs, and decent hand-drawn and CGI animation mixed together. I highly recommend anyone who's a fan of the original fairy tale or of animated films in general to check this movie out someday. So, it's an honor that I give this film the highest rating of 100%. Well, that's it for today, gang. And Sabrina, if you're watching this video, I would like to wish you a happy 20th birthday. And as your brother, I love you. And as for the rest of you viewers, be sure to join me in October because I'm going to be starting my 2015 Halloween marathon. Mustang Power!
When the world outside goes whirling like a windstorm, and it seems my fondest dreams have faded all from you, there's a place I go to, you'll be sure to find me, turning every storm cloud a lovely sky.